Hello students, my name is Mr. Van Diest. I am a student teacher with the University of La Verne. I will be making videos, math lessons for chapter 10, and this will be for Mrs. Smith's class, Mr. Jimenez class, and Mrs. Graff's class. So let's hop right in and get to work on chapter 10. Okay class, let's start on page 478. Show what you know. Read a picture graph. Use the picture graph to answer questions 1 and 2. So for the first one, they are asking you, for number 1, how many children chose pear? So here you can see pear and orange. These are the two fruits that the children liked. So how many children chose pear? So we have to look at the pear and figure out how many children chose the pear. So you're going to have to do some counting for that. Number 2, you're going to circle the fruit that more children chose. So the children chose one of these two fruits more than the other. Which one was it? Circle that one. Now for this question, read a tally chart. Complete the tally chart. So for number 3, how many children chose red? And you're going to write down the number of children that chose the color red. So you want to start numbers 3 and 4 by completing the chart first. You're going to want to count the tallies and write the total amount. For number 4, which color did the fewest children choose? So which of these 3 colors did the least amount of children choose? For numbers 5 through 10, addition and subtraction facts, write the sum or difference. Now remember, sum is plus and difference is minus. So do the math problems here for numbers 5 through 10. So go ahead and work on this page individually, and then we'll go back and go over the answers. Work on that now. Okay class, let's go over the answers. So for number 1, you should have written that 2 children chose the pear because there's 2 pears next to the category. And how many oranges do we have then if we have 2 pears? Well, we have 4 oranges. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we should have circled for number 2 the orange because there's more oranges than pears. For the tally chart, how many children chose red? So we go to, we have to fill out the totals first. So for green, you should have had 3. For red, you should have had 6. And for blue, 8. So remember, class, this diagonal line also counts. So you do have to count it as you're counting. So you see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. We count that line. So how many children chose red? We have 6 total children. And which color did the fewest or the least amount of children choose? It looks like 3 is the lowest number, so green is the color. So green is the color of the fewest children. So for numbers 5 through 10, we have 10 minus 4. We have 4 plus 5, which is 9. 6 plus 5, which is 11. 9 minus 3, which is 6. 5 plus 7. And 11 minus 3, which is 8. Students, we are now on page 479. Vocabulary Builder. Visualize it. Draw tally marks to show each number. So here are some of the review words in yellow that we are going to be working on. We're going to be working with the words tally marks, more than, and fewer than. So draw tally marks to show each number. We have number 7 here as the example. We have 7 tallies, and that's how we got number 7. So if we count them, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's continue drawing the tally marks for the rest of these. For 4, we want to draw 4 lines. 2, 3, and 4. That's 4 lines equals 4. 4 tally marks. For 10, we want to draw 4 lines like we did, and then 1 diagonal. 5 is always going to be this diagonal crossing the 4 lines. This is going to equal 5. And we want to do another set of 5 here to equal 10. So we have 5 plus 5, which gives us 10. Now for 13, we want to start with 10. So we do 4 with the line across, which is 5. We do it again, giving us a total of 10. And then we add 3 more. And that's how we got 13 tallies. So understand vocabulary. Write a number to complete the sentence. So 10 apples is more than how many apples? So you can write really any number that is less than 10, and it would make the sentence true. So for numbers 1 through 4, you can pick any number that makes the sentence true. So pause the video and work on that real quick individually, and then we'll go over it. Alright students, let's go over the answers. So number 1 will be 5 apples. So you can put really any number, so anywhere from 1 through 9. So 10 apples is going to be more than 9 apples, or 8 apples, or 7 apples, all the way down to 0. So 6 bananas is fewer than. So 7 through infinite amount of numbers. You can go all the way to 100. You can put 700 bananas. So 6 bananas is fewer than anything above the number 6. Number 3, how many grapes is more than 6 grapes? Same thing, you can put any number bigger than 6. So 7 grapes is more than 6 grapes. 9 grapes is more than 6 grapes. 20 grapes is more than 6 grapes. Any number you want above 6. So number 4, how many oranges is fewer than 5 oranges? So this is less than 5 oranges. So the numbers here could be 4, 3, 2, 1, or 0 for the answer for number 4. Class, we will now be starting Chapter 10, Section 2. Read picture graphs. How do you use a picture graph to show data? So what is one way we can use a picture graph to show data? Well, first we need to look into the vocabulary words for the chapter. So let's take a look at our chapter's vocabulary terms. So here we have the vocabulary terms for chapter 10. So a survey is a gathering of data using statistics and results based on a large number of subjects interviewed. So a survey is basically going out and asking people their opinion and taking notes of who chooses, of what answers are being chosen, and then that information will be used to create a data or a series of information that we can use to create our charts. So basically, the survey is the actual format, so the way that you're going to go about getting the data, which is the information. So the data is the actual information, the survey is the way that you're going to get the information, and the charts are how you organize the information. So let's make that a little more simple. Let's give you an example. So if you want to find out how many of your classmates, what is your classmates' favorite flavor of ice cream? So that's a survey. You would go and ask, okay, how many people like chocolate? And you would see how many students raise their hand for chocolate. Okay, so how many students like vanilla? And then you would see how many students like vanilla. So for example, let's say that 5 students like chocolate. Well, that number 5, is the data that you're collecting. There's 5 students that like chocolate. So the number 5 is the data, the information. So now you ask them, how many students do you like vanilla? And 3 students raise their hand. Well, now you have 3 is another piece of data, another information that you can use, that 3 students like vanilla. So the data is the information, and the survey is what you did to get that information. So the survey is you asking your classmates what their favorite flavor of ice cream is. That's the survey. So we're going to get into the charts later on in the chapter. So we have a tally chart, which is what we were working on earlier using tally marks. So those lines we can use to create a chart. So instead of saying 5 people like chocolate and 3 people like vanilla, you can write 5 tallies and 3 tallies to show vanilla. So we're going to work on that later on in the chapter. Tally marks are the lines that we were discussing earlier. The total numbers measured for specific categories. So the total number of lines, and each line is called a tally mark. And that's going to be used for the tally chart. The picture graph is going to be exactly what it says, a graph using pictures. So whenever you use information where you draw pictures instead of using numbers, that's going to be the picture graph. The bar graph is the graph that looks like it has bars. You're going to see rectangular blocks, and when you see blocks or rectangles, that's the bar graph. So we're going to work on that more later on in the chapter. So back to the essential question, how do you use a picture graph to show data? Well, you can use a picture graph to show pictures, the information, the data, using pictures. Like you can draw a picture of a chocolate ice cream and a picture of a vanilla ice cream, and that's how you can make a picture graph. So let's start with the first example. For this one, we're going to work on tally charts. So use the tally chart to solve the problem, and then draw or write to show what you did. So here we have the tally chart for us. It's going to be on favorite hobby. So here we have the hobbies. We have the favorite hobbies could be crafts, could be reading, music, or sports. Those are the 4 different hobbies. And now on the right side we see the different tallies, the tally marks. So these are the tally marks for each of the favorite hobbies. Now the question is asking, Mr. Martin's class made this tally chart. How many more children in his class chose sports than they chose reading as their favorite hobby? So it's asking us how many more of the students chose sports, which is the one on the very bottom, over choosing reading, which is the second one here. So how many more chose sports than reading? First thing we need to do is write the number of tally marks next to each one. So crafts, how many tallies do we have? How many tally marks? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 for crafts. So remember, we always count the diagonal line. So when you see a diagonal line, you can take a shortcut and assume that it's always going to be 5. That diagonal line is like the seat belt that keeps all the numbers together. When you see that seat belt, you can assume that it's going to be 5 right off the bat. So that's one way to count faster. So we know automatically that this is 5. 5 plus 1 is 6. Now for reading, these tally marks do not have a seat belt, so we do have to count them. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 tally marks, giving us the number 4. For music, we can already assume that it's 5 because the 4 lines have a seat belt, giving it 5. So this is 5 for music. For sports, we have a seatbelt, which gives it automatically 5. 5, and then we add 2, so it would be 6, 7. 7 total. Now the question is asking how many more children chose sports over reading. So we have to do 7 minus 4. So let's write the subtraction problem here. 7 minus 4. And what do we get? We should have 3 more children. Okay, so let's also go over the math talk. So here's a good question. Can the chart be used to find how many girls chose music? So let's go over that. Let's explain how we can figure that out. So it's asking if it's possible to figure out how many girls chose music. Now, using the information that we have here, we can't figure out how many girls chose music because there's nothing about gender anywhere on this information. So it doesn't tell us how many girls or how many boys liked music. So during the survey, if you remember the vocab word, if we were doing the survey, we would have to ask how many boys like music and how many girls like music in order to get that information. But since we never asked that information during the survey, we can't figure that out. So the answer is no, we cannot use this chart to find out how many girls because we are missing some data. We are missing data from the survey. Students, we are now on page 486. Model and draw. A picture graph uses picture to show data. So here we have an example of a picture graph. Remember, picture graphs is the graph that shows pictures on it, just like this one with the soccer balls. So this graph, this survey, was taken for the number of soccer games. And each soccer game took place in each month. So we have a category for March, a category for April, one for May, and one for June. And it's telling us here in the key. So the key is like a little tip telling us, hey, this is what it stands for. So when we see a picture of a soccer ball, we know that each soccer ball is going to mean one game. It's going to stand for one game. So one soccer ball equals one game. So here we have the vocab term. A key tells how many each picture stands for. So if each soccer ball stands for one game, how many games do we have in March? Well, all we have to do is count by one since one soccer ball is the same as one game. So we can count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we know that March we had 4 soccer games. And you can do that for all of the months. So April, all we do is count 1, 2, 3, and we know that we had 3 games in April. So that's how we use a picture graph. Now, share and show. Use the picture graph to answer the questions. So let's work on these together. So here we have a survey taken of favorite snacks. And here are the categories. We have pretzels, grapes, popcorn, and apples. Now the next thing is the key. Let's look at the key next. Each happy face stands for one child. So every time we see a happy face, that's going to equal the same thing as one child. So very easy. All we have to do is count each happy face and we will have the total amount. So let's start by working on counting each category. So for pretzels, let's count each happy face. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 happy faces gives us 8 children. So this is the same as saying that 8 children like pretzels. So how many children like grapes? Let's go ahead and count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 children. 7 like grapes. For popcorn, we have 1, 2, 3. And for apples, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 children want apples. Now let's answer questions 1 and 2. For number 1, which snack was chosen by the fewest children? So we're looking for the lowest number here. The lowest amount of children chose which snack? We can see here that the lowest amount of pictures is going to be in the popcorn. There's only 3 happy faces. So using the survey, we can easily see that popcorn is the least favorite. So we write popcorn in that for the answer for number 1. Now for number 2, how many more children chose pretzels than apples. Now this one is asking to do a little math. We need to figure out how many more children chose pretzels, which is the first one, over apples, which is the last one, I'm sorry. So we have to do some subtracting here. Let's do 8, which is the bigger number, 8 pretzels minus the 6 apples, so that we can figure out how many more liked pretzels. The answer to that is going to be 2. 2 children liked more pretzels. So you can also look at the graph here. Apples we have 6, pretzels we have 8. So all the difference here between the two is 2 happy faces. So pretzels is going to have 2 more happy faces than apples, as you can see here. So that's another way to do it as well. So the answer is 2 more children. Alright students, we are now on page 487. On your own now, use the picture graph to answer the questions. So questions numbers 3 through 6, we are going to be using this picture graph to help us answer the questions. So first of all, we want to start by figuring out what the survey is about. So the survey is about number of pencils, right? So it looks like these students, we have the categories on the left here, Elena, Kiana, Dante, and Brad. So 4 students, and we surveyed them for the number of pencils. So first thing we need to do is figure out, using the key, how many pencils each student has. So the key is telling us what? The key is telling us that each pencil, picture of a pencil, stands for 1 pencil. That makes it very easy because we know that 1 picture of a pencil is the same as 1 pencil. So 1 equals 1. Knowing that, let's go ahead and start by filling out the total amount for each student. Go ahead and count and figure out the total amount, and then work your way through questions number 3 through 6 and see if you can figure out the answers using the picture graph. Work on that now. Alright class, let's go over the answers. For number 3, you should have gotten the answer 11 pencils, because you are adding Elena and Brad. Brad has 8 pencils, Elena has 3 pencils. 8 plus 3 equals 11. Number 4, how many more pencils does Kiana have than Elena has? 2 more pencils, because Kiana has 2 more pictures of pencils than Elena has. Number 5, Miss Green has the same number of pencils as the 4 children, so how many pencils does she have? Well, if Miss Green has the same number as all the children, all you have to do is add all of the pencils together. And when you add them all together, you should have gotten the answer 20 pencils. Number 6, use graphs. Christy has 7 pencils. Write 2 sentences to describe her number of pencils write 2 sentences to describe how her number of pencils compares to the data in the picture graph. So this one is telling us that Christy has 7 pencils. Now this is a new student. Christy is not here in the graph. So we would have had to add her to the graph. And her total amount was 7 pencils. So you would have probably drawn 7 pencils here, or written the number 7 next to her name. So writing 2 sentences, how can we describe her number of pencils compared on how it compares to the data in the picture graph? So here's an example of something you could have written. Christy has 2 more pencils than Kiana, which is true. And Brad has 1 more pencil than Christy. So what you're saying with something like this is that you're giving us a description of how her information relates to the other students. So here we wrote that Christy has 2 more pencils than Kiana, which is true because Kiana only has 5 and Christy has 7. And Brad has 1 more pencil than Christy, which is true because Brad has 8 and Christy has 7. You could have written a sentence like, Christy has 3 less than Dante, or Dante has 3 less than Christy, or Christy has 3 more than Dante. And any combination really of information, as long as it's true. Alright class, we are now on page 488, problem solving applications. So for number 7, attempt to do it on your own, and if you need some help, you can wait for us to go through it together. So let's go on through number 7 together. So here we have a picture graph. Favorite balloon color is the survey, and the categories are green, blue, red, and purple. So let's look at the key next. Each picture of a balloon is going to equal the same as 1 child. So each balloon equals 1 child. Okay, so let's go to the question now. Well, actually, it's good habit to figure out the totals before we even go to the question. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and count each balloon for each category. For green, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's write the number 4 next to green. For blue, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For red, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And for purple, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 children for purple. Because remember, each balloon stands for 1 child. Now we can go to the question. Which 3 colors were chosen by a total of 13 children? Okay, so this one's going to require a little bit of deeper thinking. We are going to want to add the categories together to equal 13, and it has to be 13. No more or no less. So which 3 categories, when added together, equals 13 children? So you're going to have to do some adding to figure this out. So let's start by adding green and blue. So 4 plus 5, we get 9. So which of these 2 plus 9 would give us 13? I think purple, because 4 plus 9 would give us 13. So those are the 3 colors we can use. We can use green, blue, and purple. Number 8. Use the numbers on the tiles to complete the sentence about the picture graph. So these are the number tiles that they give us in order to complete the sentence. And on the right, we have the actual picture graph. So let's start by understanding the picture graph. So here is the survey. It looks like they did number of pets. And then the categories are the people, the students. So we have Scott, Andre, and Maddie. So each diamond, picture of a diamond, is going to equal 1 pet. So this information is telling us that Scott has 1, 2, 3 pets. So let's write down 3 for Scott. Andre has 1 pet, because all we did is count 1 diamond. And Maddie has 2 diamonds, which equals 2 pets. So Maddie has 2 pets. Now we can start answering the questions. It'll make it much easier. Scott has how many pets? Well, we already figured this out, so 3. Let's move the number 3 tile to this one. This is the number 3. Andre has how many fewer pets than Scott? So we can see here that Andre has 2 fewer than Scott, which means he has 2 less diamonds than Scott does. So we're going to write the number 2. Maddie and Scott have how many more pets than Andre? 4 more than Andre. Because if you add Maddie and Scott together, they have 5. Altogether, they have 5 pets. And if you subtract Andre's pet, you will get the number 4. So they will have 4 more pets than Andre. Because Andre starts with 1, and they start with 5. So you have to, they're going to have 4 more than Andre, because he started at 1. That concludes today's video. Thank you for joining me. Well done on this assignment, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.